Welcome to Run with Purpose. This is episode number 35. For those of you that are new to the show, my name is Flores, and I'm so very glad that you found this podcast. Would love if you subscribe. You can find us on all of the places you can find podcasts. Obviously, you know that you found us, and you can always reach out to me on all of the socials at flores.run. Thanks for everyone that's watching the video as well on the YouTube channel. As you guys know, if there's a video, that means there's an interview, and we'll get to that here in a moment. But a few weeks ago, I had mentioned a project I wanted to kind of start working on, and really it was about finding people with stories that are, kind of fit the flow of the podcast. So, running your life with purpose and intentionality. And I was like, hey, what better way to get people's stories than to literally just go on Reddit? There's a ton of people on Reddit, and you can find different types of topics and subjects and that sort of thing to communicate with people. It's a great community. It can be a harsh community at some points in some places too, but overall it's a great community. And this week we actually have the first installment of that project. I have Oleksander. His story is really about never giving up, and that nothing is impossible with hard work. So I'm so thankful that you took the time this evening to chat with me. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me here. Yeah, it's an honor.
Oh yeah, I think it's gonna be a good conversation just from what you had shared on Reddit, and then basically our emails back and forth and stuff like that. I think it's gonna be a really good conversation. I think people are gonna get a lot out of this. Again, the idea is, we're all normal people, and we can do amazing things, but like we talked about before we started recording, life is what you make it. And if you kind of let the circumstances control you, you can go down a real crazy path there. But before we dive into all of this kind of stuff, maybe tell the people just maybe a little bit of your background.
Sure thing. So just a few little things about me. I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm 23 years old. A few of my hobbies, I like to run, of course, but I also like working out. I like playing the guitar. I'm not that great at it, but it's still a lot of fun. And recently I've started dabbling in writing. Now, my family is from Ukraine. I'm actually the first member of my family born in America. So that's something that I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. How long did they live here before you were born?
I think I lost audio.
Oh, can you hear me? You got me?
I think we should be. Oh. All right.
You good?
You good? I'm good.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, we're having some crazy thunderstorms here too. So my power just flickered. So I'm really hoping we don't lose power while this happens too. Whatever. We just roll with the punches.
That would happen, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's all right. It happens. So what I had asked was, how long had your parents been in the States before you were born?
So it's actually a pretty crazy story. So my dad came here. My parents are older. My dad came here in 52 or 1950, and he came over on a boat with his family. And then he lived here. He lived his whole life here. He was an architect. And my mom came here she came right before the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. And my dad was actually the immigration officer that helped her get in. That's a abridged version. I think the actual story is a bit longer, but that's the story I understand, that he actually helped her get in. And that's kind of how they met, and as a result of that, here I am. I think it's a crazy story. Two people so far apart happen to run into each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I guess to answer your question, my dad's been here for pretty much his entire life. My mom just came here about 25 years ago.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool though. Yeah, like you said, it's kind of interesting just how those kind of circumstances kind of go hand in hand and that sort of thing. You still live in Pennsylvania?
Yes. So when I was 18, I left to go to Widener University. I went to school there, and then I lived over in that area for a while, for about 2 years. That's near Philadelphia, the Delco area. Mm-hmm. And then And then actually just a couple months ago, I moved back here to my family's house, mostly because there's two young kids here. My two nephews live here, and it's with everybody being stuck at home all the time. It's extremely difficult for my mom to manage the household and manage them, and so I figured I would come back here, lend a helping hand, and help the whole household run a bit more smoothly.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I noticed the flyer shirt, so I was just like, oh, I wonder if he's still in PA. So
I think I if I don't stay in PA, the only other place I would go is probably go live in like Westchester, New York, because I got a lot of family up there. But other than that, I love PA.
Yeah, my wife's family is from probably about like 2 hours southeast of Pittsburgh, so she's more like the Maryland border kind of thing. So on the other side of PA, so I'm familiar with that side. I'm not as familiar with the like the Philadelphia side, but yeah, PA. I told her Pennsylvania. She's like, oh, I know that area. I'm like, oh, I'm sure you do, honey. But we didn't go on the show to talk about Pennsylvania. So the idea today was to really talking about pushing yourself and kind of what that means to you, because that was kind of when for those listening, I asked people on Reddit saying, hey, just tell me, I want to know more about you, your story, what you took to get to the place you are now. And you had brought up about this, like pushing yourself and that sort of thing. So if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about that, and we can just keep talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start the story, we have to go back to when I was in high school. Now, growing up here, when I was living here originally, my grandma lived here. Now, she's passed away, God rest her soul. But when she lived here and I was growing up, she had this habit, out of the goodness of her heart, of doing just about everything for me. She would not let me lift a finger for myself. And growing up with that, it kind of gave me this mentality of, I don't really need to put any effort in to get things. And that really backfired when I got to college. And I'm in college and I'm sitting there. I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to do laundry. I don't know how to wash dishes. And it was a mess. My freshman year was a big mess. But over that freshman year, I looked at myself and I'm like, dude, you have got to change. You've got to do something. Something has to change. And so going from my freshman year into my sophomore year, I kind of, that summer in between, I had that mentality. And I said, okay, starting sophomore year, you are going to push yourself. And I didn't know what that meant. I kind of just said, told myself, you have got to do something. So, sophomore year, I kind of really more immersed myself in the college experience. I never really went home. I stayed at college on the weekends, really bonded with my friends. And that year, I actually ended up joining a fraternity, Theta Chi fraternity, which I did. Freshman year, I thought fraternities were a joke. Sorry if anyone's in a fraternity who's listening, but I thought they were a joke. I thought people in fraternities are just alcoholics. But then a couple of the friends I had were already joined in a fraternity, and I knew them from freshman year, and I saw how much they changed from being kind of loose cannon freshman year to being very professional and very collected sophomore year. Then I'm like, maybe there's something to it. So my second semester of my sophomore year, I joined this fraternity, and that really was where I learned to push myself, because it's one thing to push yourself, but joining fraternity, going through the process, you have to push yourself if you want to make it through, if you want to get to the end of it. And once you get through it, you have a lot of responsibilities. You have meetings you have to go to. When I was in there, I had roles as academic chair, then I was treasurer, and then I was philanthropy chair, and that made me push myself to accomplish things. I couldn't just sit back and focus on my own schoolwork and let things be fine. I had people that had expectations of me, and they weren't going to hold my hand like my hand was held when I was younger. And I think that is really what and going through that is really what made me want to push myself. So
yeah, I think not to cut you off there, but I think that's interesting that you have, like, because a lot of people will have that same kind of thing. I can agree with you. Is when I went to college, I had literally never washed clothes before. I knew how to cook a little bit because my family was chefs, so like I kind of had that concept. But other than that, like I didn't really have to do much at home. Like my parents were divorced, but my mom took care of things at the house, and my dad was a clean freak too, so he did a lot of the cleaning and stuff at his house. So I never had to do too much. And then when I go to college, I lived in Florida at the time. I graduated high school in Florida, but then went to college in North Carolina. So I was even 15 hours away from my family. So it was even like I couldn't even go see my family if I wanted to. And I don't think I initially had that mentality of I need to wake up and kind of get this stuff done myself. So I mean, like, kudos to you to kind of waking up to that realization, like, you know what, I need to do something here if I'm going to do that. And then, like you said, with the fraternity as well, you find that group of friends with common goals, common aspirations, pushing each other forward in a way, and you kind of get that camaraderie, you know, if you will. I think I think I can speak super to help you push through any circumstance. Yeah.
And I guess another layer that I could add to that story that I already told that might resonate with certain people is that so in high school, in addition to kind of being coddled, I went to a very small school. My graduating class was 42 people. Wow. And so I didn't really have much of a social life. We kind of live in a more rural area of Pennsylvania, so I don't have neighbors. The school I went to, my parents not wealthy in the slightest, but my mom was able to pull some strings. She works at a country club, so she has friends who are members at that country club. So she was able to pull some strings and get me some references, and I was able to get into a pretty high-class private school, Lancaster Country Day School. And it was a great school from an academic perspective, not so much from a social perspective. I didn't really make that many friends at that school, except one really good friend that I have, Will, who kind of got me through high school. But aside from that, I was a very shy, sort of introverted person, and I never really saw a value to going out and socializing. And it wasn't until I got to college and I was kind of pushed into that. I had to socialize. It's either that or go home on the weekends. And in my sophomore semester, I never did that. And when I started doing that and I joined a fraternity, I suddenly had a whole group of people that looked at me and respected me. And I started to feel like I belonged. I wasn't just this one person. I was part of a group of people. And that's kind of what that feeling of camaraderie, like you said, is what made me push myself to want to better myself, because suddenly I am not my only audience. I have other people looking at me, and I want to set a good example for both my brothers and the newer brothers that came in under me, as well as any freshmen or underclassmen that I may run into. That I want to be someone that they can look up to. And so I wanted to develop myself so that I could be that person. So anyway, going through my senior year, I lived off campus, and that was kind of the year that really changed me the most, because suddenly I wasn't in the dorms. I was off campus. I could actually do whatever I wanted, and I had the responsibility of paying rent. It was before graduating, it was the closest I ever came to actually really adulting. In college, I had this one really good friend named Brandon, who it seemed like everything he did, he took it to the next level. Like, he never kind of half-assed anything, pardon my French.
No, that's fine.
But everything he did, he took to the next level. And he did martial arts, he played guitar, he did a ton of stuff, and but he never struck me as much of a runner. That wasn't a super big thing for him. So then one day I see on his Instagram they posted a 13.7 mile run from a screenshot from Strava. And I saw that. I'm like, wait. and that just shocked me. I'm like, that's something that I thought you had to be elite. You had to train for years to do that. I'm like, that's not something I thought you could just go out and do just for fun. And so when I saw that, I was like, maybe I could run. Maybe I could get into it. I mean, because I would go to the gym with him a lot, and before we lifted, we would run on the treadmill, maybe a half mile, maybe a mile, just to get our sweat going. And one day I just downloaded Strava and went on a 2-mile run out to the near Wawa and back, and I hated it. It was awful. I was sweaty. I think my time was like 9.5 minute mile, which I think maybe to some people that might be good, but I mean, I just didn't like it. But I knew that I wanted to run, but I didn't want to run. And then 2 weeks went by, and and it was a Friday, and I got really, really sick. Like, I woke up at 7 a.m. on Friday, and the first thing I did is I got out of my bed, emailed my professors, and I'm not coming to class, got back in bed, laid there until about 7 p.m. And then at that point I was really hungry, so I wanted to go down, heat up a cheesesteak I had in the fridge, and it was an hour-and-a-half process to walk from my bed to the kitchen, heat it up, bring it back to my room and eat it. It took an hour-and-a-half because I was so groggy. But after that experience, I decided that I'm not going to put my health in jeopardy. Like, that kind of was an awakening, because I was like, holy crap, I thought I was going to die. And so the following Tuesday, I went out for a run. This time I did 2.5 miles. I just took a longer route back from the same Wawa. And then the next run I think I did like 3 miles, and then the next one was 3.5. And I think when I hit 4 or 4.5 miles, I felt the runner's high. Like, I remember there was a clear moment when I was running, and I think I was about 4.5 miles into the run, and I was running, and up until then I was like breathing heavy, and I hated it, but I was forcing myself to do it. And then I was running, and I was about 4.5 miles, and I just acknowledged to myself, I don't feel anything. I don't feel stressed. I don't feel strained. The only thing I could feel was the impact of my feet on the ground, but everything else was kind of like everything was fine. And that really like struck me as odd, because I'm like, running is comfortable. That was never something that I would ever imagine could ever happen.
What is this witchcraft?
This is witchcraft, exactly. But then the next time I ran, I ended up running. So that run was 5 miles. The next run I ran was like, I think 6.5 miles. And then after that, I went to Vegas, and it was the morning. I woke up in the hotel, and I was like, I'm going to go for a run. And I went for a run, and I saw a building in the distance. I forget what it was. It was one of the hotels. It was Trump Tower. I saw Trump Tower in the distance, and I'm like, I'm going to run to there. I didn't know how far it was, but I started running, and I get to a turnoff that goes onto a highway that goes to the tower. And I look, and I'm like, well, I can't go there. That's a highway. So I obviously can't run there, but I'm like, so I need a new target. So I just looked around, and I saw the stratosphere, and it was about as far as the Trump Tower was when I started. And I'm like, I'm going to run there. I ran there. It was 4 miles. The 4 miles total to get there. And I was like, I'm at 4 miles. I need to run 4 miles back. That's going to be 8 miles. Can I do that? I ran 8 miles back, and it was just as easy. I got back, and I felt just as fine as I did after 5 miles, if not better, just because, the euphoria of running that far. But it just snowballed from there. I ended up about like a few runs later. I ran a half marathon just around Lancaster. I think I was home that weekend, and I remember when I ran the half marathon, at that time I did push myself too hard, because I ran until about 10 miles, and then I was like running and walking. And then I ended up just walking the last like half a mile, and then I got to hit my watch hit 13.1, and I called my brother to pick me up, and I got in the car, and I didn't say anything. I was just like, I couldn't even speak. I was like, just ran a half marathon. Take me to Sheets. For people who don't know, Sheets is like the local. It's like Wawa or 7-Eleven, but it has much better food.
Yeah.
Has made to order. Anyway,
we've been getting there every time we go to Pennsylvania or head out that way because we don't have any Sheets close by. Our closest one's probably about an hour and a half outside Columbus, but they have their burritos are amazing. And I'm vegetarian, so they end up being like $5, and I'm like, yes, a $5 massive burrito. It's much better than Chipotle. I'm like, Sheets all day.
Yeah, Sheets is great. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Sheets. So I hit 13.1. That was the second time I thought I would die because I remember I got home, I ate the burger that I bought, and I went and laid down in my bed, and it was pretty cold that day. I think it was like 40 degrees when I finished running, and I remember laying in my bed wrapped up in blankets, and I just kept getting colder and colder and colder, even though I was wrapped up. And I'm like, I thought I ran until I completely ran out of energy. I ran my body dry, and this was how I was going to die. And obviously I didn't. But I realized that 10 miles was my limit. I could run up to 10 miles before my body started to respond very negatively. So then at the same time, I told myself, if I could do this after just about a month of running, how long would it take for me to train for a marathon? So I decided to start running a hobby, something I did on a regular basis, and I started training for the Philadelphia Marathon that was going to happen, I think, 7 months later at that point. At this point, I think I'm farther along than where most people would be if they're trying to get into running. So I think the important thing is not me at that point, because I did train. I ended up running a marathon, and I got kind of spotty after that, but but I did stick with it. Sometimes I would not run for a month and then go for a run. I could barely run 5 miles. So other times I would run 3 times a week and just try to build myself up. But I guess me getting to that point, when I was at that point, I was like, how did I get here? I've always been lazy. I've never liked running. I've never been someone who I thought would ever do anything that would amount to anything like that. I was shocked. So I think the moral is anybody can do it if they put their mind to it. You just have to want it. Like recently I started running with my family. My brother, who's much older than me, he's my half brother from my mom's side, and he's never run in his life. He's smoked cigarettes for 27 years, and he never thought he could run. And I kind of pushed him to go out running with me. And the first time we ran, I think we ran 1.5 miles, and he took like 5 walking breaks the whole time. And I didn't judge him. I just said, yeah, that's how it's going to be. Your first run's going to suck. But he wanted to keep doing it. And he went out second time with me and ran. That time we ran 2 miles, and he had sort of the same amazing feeling that I did, because he ended up running that full 2 miles without taking a single walking break, running at the same pace that he did before. And so that kind of showed me that he's in his 40s. He smoked for 27 years, and he was able to go out and push himself to start running. And he's been running on and off with me, and he's definitely been improving. I think the farthest run we did was 3.5 miles, and he was able to power through more than half of it before having to stop for a walk. So, I guess the thing is, there's the only excuse any excuse you create is only a reason why you don't want to do it. But if you want to do it, no amount of excuses will stop you from doing it. I guess that's the moral of the story. So is there anything else you'd like to ask? I feel like I've been talking for a while, and
no worries,
don't know how much. I guess I don't really have too much more to add to that specific story, but if there's any questions you'd like to ask me, any things you'd like to clear up, or anything that interests you, I'd be happy to answer anything.
Yeah, and first off, I mean, I think your story itself, it can speak to so many people. It's easier to see it from this side, where you've done all these things and you can look back and you're like, oh, it's because I pushed myself and I did that. But I can almost guarantee, and you can probably relate to this, is in the middle of that, you felt like this, I'm never going to get to this point. Like, I'm not going to be able to get to this level. I want to, I'm going to push myself and I'm going to drive to do that. But it takes a lot of, not only physical to get from running a couple miles to running a marathon, but it also takes a lot of mental. It's a lot between your ears of, I can do this, and kind of motivating yourself. What was that push for you of, you did that half marathon and then you felt like you were going to die in your bed because you were freezing. You got the shivers and stuff like that, which I know that feeling, and that is not a fun feeling. But what pushed you to say, all right, I did 13.1, let's try 26.2?
Just how fast I got there. Like I said, I went in a month. I went from hating my life after 2 miles to, hating my life, but not until 13.1 miles.
Right.
So I told myself, if I can do that in a month, I don't really know at that point, since I'm not really a runner, I don't know that many runners, but I guess in my head, that seemed like something that I thought was to myself, that they gave me a sense of confidence. It gave me a feeling that if I can do this much farther, should be possible for me. And because I remember when I was training for the marathon, I would say I'm going to go for a 8-mile run, and then I would be running, and then I'll just see a road that I've never run down before, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to run down that road for a mile and a half, and then come back and then keep running. And it's just kind of like when you're looking at running from the outside perspective, it seems crazy. It seems scary. It seems like something you could never do. But when you're in the middle of it, when you're actually out there running, and you feel that euphoria, and you've gotten over that hump of like kind of getting yourself into it, running stops being sort of something that's painful. It starts being something that's rewarding. I mean, when I was in college, if I went out and got really, really, really drunk on a Friday night, I would wake up Saturday morning at 9 a.m. and I'd go out for an 8-mile run, and it would be better than taking Advil, because it would just clear my head, and I would go home, take a nice cold shower, and I would just feel on top of the world. So yeah, I guess what pushed me to, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm always interested in seeing that, because I've talked to people that have literally sworn off, saying like, I'm never going to run a marathon, or I'm never going to run a half marathon for that matter. And I think everybody has their own distances that mean to them. It means something to you, and I think that's the important. I was curious about that, because it's something that meant to you. Of, I got to 13.1, you see this marathon, and you're like, well, that seems, it's far enough to scare me that I'm like, it's going to be a challenge. I can't just do it today, but it's definitely something that I can attain. It's a goal I can attain. My buddy Mike says that all the time. He's like, when you set goals, they shouldn't be easy, but they should be attainable. Like, it's going to require work, and you got to put time in, and you got to have the perseverance to go through the battles that will happen, because things will come up. Things will take your attention. You party one night and you're like, well, I still got to get my run in. Like, I still need to run on Saturday. So, you know what? I did this to myself. Time to just go suck it up and get my run in. Those kind of things happen. But if you have that perspective of pushing yourself and seeing what your limits are, and I have a quote that I've been living by the last few years, basically getting comfortable with discomfort, and having that run through everything in my mind of, if something's comfortable, I kind of want to take it away, and I want to see how I can grow in that situation. And this current time we're in is exactly that. Is, we're losing a lot of our comforts that we had, and we're having to rethink of what's important to us and how we should be spending our time and spending our attention in this time, which I think is going to, even though it's not a time we want to be in at all, it's definitely we're going to come out of it better, I believe, in many aspects of society as a whole. One thing you had mentioned too, talking about like your brother, getting him to run and stuff like that. It's like you probably don't realize the amount of impact you've had on people, just seeing you run and kind of seeing your story go. It's like, oh, I remember him, and I didn't think he was a runner, and look what he's been able to accomplish and that sort of thing. I mean, it's just like this. It's you raising your hand and saying, hey, yeah, I want to chat and tell my story to strangers that I'll probably never meet. But it's like those kinds of things. You'll look back just like you're looking back now and at your running journey or your life really journey that's gotten you to this point, and you'll kind of have that. That's like my wise sage advice, because I have the same thing with the races that I've done. Is I don't think I've done. There's always someone that's done more. You can always look to someone and say they've done more. They're faster than me. They're better than me. Whatever that may mean. But we don't realize the people that we actually impact on a day to day, and that's why this podcast exists and that sort of thing, to tell stories like yours to help people understand that, hey, you could do this too. It's not an elite person. You're not have to be a specific body type or a specific kind of person or an athlete or whatever. You can make this happen. But yeah, I'm trying to think. There was something else I was going to ask, and I forgot because I meant to write it down and I put my keyboard away.
Well, while you remember that, I do have a couple of things I want to add. First of all, and this is one thing, if there's any people out there that want to run, but they're scared of it, because, we're talking about running 8 miles, 10 miles, half marathon, and those seem like really scary numbers. And I think that the important thing for people to realize is that the difficulty of running isn't linear. It's more like a curve. It's I guess the way the line would go is it would go up to about 4.5 miles or 4 miles. The difficulty will increase, but once you reach that point, and you can probably attest that you kind of get to a point where you've run so far that your body doesn't really care anymore that it's tired or that it's sweating. Your body just kind of is okay with it. It becomes the new norm. And I think people that want to run and see this 4 miles to someone who's never run before is scary. But what people don't realize is that 4 miles may be a big wall, but right behind the wall is a luscious Greenland of happiness, because you get to that wall and you get over it, and it's like going down on a roller coaster. You snowball. And the other thing is that thing you said about trying to get rid of the comforts and focus on discomforts. I remember when I was, this is before I started running. This was in the fall of my senior year. I started running in February. But in the fall, I remember there was I was kind of pushing myself in other ways, trying to get done with school, trying to be treasurer and doing that job that was awful, because you have to be a dickhead if you want to be a treasurer, and I'm not like that.
You're like, so guys, you need to pay your dues. Got to pay your dues. We need to get this money in.
Exactly. That's why I became philanthropy chair, just to clear my conscience. But anyway, I digress. I remember in that time, I actually had a saying to myself, because there would always be things that I didn't want to do. Like, I don't want to write this 10-page paper. I don't want to have to. And I started having a motto that was profoundly effective, even though it was just words. And what I would say to myself is, I don't want to do this, therefore I will do this. And it seems so simple, but in that time it was so compelling to me, because it was like, why are you doing this? Because you don't want to. You're not doing it because you don't. It kind of like rewires your brain almost if you get in the habit of thinking that way. It's a difficult way to think, but if you can learn to tell yourself that, I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand with the getting comfortable with discomfort, because you're kind of saying, why do I not want to do this? Like, there's something in me that is saying I don't want to do this, and it's why. You kind of have to free yourself from that to experience new things, experience life, and that sort of thing. And sometimes you're going to fail. Failures happen, but kind of looking past those failures and continue to push on. I think that's the message right there, man.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. So hey, do you ever remember that thing that you wanted to mention?
Nah, I don't. It was something along the lines of the comfort with discomfort. I was going to dig more into that, but I can't remember. But your thing was much better than mine anyway, so it's fine. We can end on that. We can end on that note. But how can people connect with you if they want to connect with you and just see more about what you're doing?
Well, so my best way to connect with me, I'm not really on Twitter, but I am on Facebook and on Instagram. Instagram, my tag, I don't know if you can put this in writing anywhere, but it's Heyo, and it's spelled HEYYY_OOOO. Otherwise, it's Heyo with 3 Y's and 4 O's. Is the way I like to say it.
It'll be in the show notes, so people will be able to see it there too. But I'll tag you in it, so people will know where to find
Sweet.
you.
And then Facebook, I'm not super active on it, but I'm definitely on it a lot, looking at other people's posts. So if someone wants to reach out to me through it, it's just my name. My full name is Oleksander Vsevolod Karad. My middle name, I'm not going to bother trying to go through how to spell it, but I can email it to you later if you want to put it in your notes.
You send him a DM on Instagram, and if you want to be his friend on Facebook, just ask him, and we'll go that route. It'll make it easier for everybody, probably.
Yeah, that works.
But yeah, thanks for being on the show again. I really appreciate you telling your story. I truly believe that someone's going to listen to this, and it's really going to kind of give them that spark to kind of keep pushing forward. I mean, like you said, I don't want to do this, therefore I'm going to do it. And I think that definitely hits the nail on the head for sure.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think that's definitely a solid point to end on, that learn to teach yourself to do things that you don't want to for the reason that you don't want to do it and no other reason.
Exactly. I couldn't say it better myself, man. But so yeah, everyone, thanks for checking out this week's episode. Definitely reach out to Oleksander on Instagram. Let him know you appreciated his words and stuff like that. And then share it with your friends and stuff like that. People that you may think can hear this message and really get a lot out of it. I think it's going to be a great message that people are going to want to hear, and you need to be the ones to share it. So do it. You can reach out to me everywhere on social media at flores.run. You can subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. That helps people find it with all of the special algorithms and how all that sciencey stuff works. Leave a review. It's super helpful, and you can visit my website at www.flores.run. I'll have all of my race reports on there. I am actually updating the page, so I'll have more with the podcast, more interviews and stuff like that. But thank you so much for listening today. Oleksander, thank you so much for joining me on the show as well. Remember to keep running with purpose, one step at a time, and we'll see you guys next week.